Hey guys, it's Will here. I'm here today with David Goldman again. We're going to talk about muscle building. And so, David, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Will. I appreciate it. It's good to be back.
For people that haven't seen, I've done a couple of videos with David on basically intermittent fasting was kind of the majority of the topic, and a little bit on nutrition and stuff like that, but mostly around intermittent fasting. So, for the past, I don't know how many months I was doing intermittent fasting, but also I was really watching my calorie intake, and I was also doing weight training, and I found that I sort of hit a plateau and I was losing motivation and some energy. And you had mentioned in our previous chat that you really need to either build muscle or burn fat, like unless you're like a beginner type of thing. So I mean, I probably shouldn't have tried to gain. Like it's great for some maintenance and maybe, um, yeah, like not losing muscle when you're sort of intermittent fasting or cutting calories. But I reached a point where I realized that it wasn't working for me as far as I really want to build muscle. So now I'm in the last 2 weeks I've been going harder with uh, 6 days a week, push pull push pull legs twice a week.
Have you been getting stronger?
Yes, definitely noticed I get more pumps and way more fatigued than I was when I was doing. I don't want to talk negatively say about calisthenics because it was more than just, well, this didn't work and that did work, but because it's about getting serious too, like doing a warm up, getting some good tunes going that motivate me. Because I would do pull ups. Say I just start grabbing doing pull ups, and I wasn't really energetic or motivated. I felt like it wasn't even my muscles restricting me. It was like I'm just an energy loss of, and you're also like, you haven't eaten say in the morning or something, and so now I've been eating a lot more. I've been way hungrier and really fatigued like that after the workout. And that's what I'm trying to go for now is like fatiguing the muscles and doing more volume because I don't think I was doing enough volume either.
So you're trying to put on size, you're trying to get stronger, and you're using more training volume to accomplish that.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I'm just trying to build muscle, to be honest. I'm not. It's not an athletic endeavor like I'm going to play a sport. It's building muscle from the quads and calves to in hamstrings, which my hamstrings are a bit of a problem because I sit a lot, and then right up to chest, back,
Whole
shoulders,
body.
the whole
Whole
body.
body. We want you to have ripped ears. We want the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that you're trying new training programs out and that you're demoing, like you said, all body weight and then moving towards, more free weight work you were telling me before. I think that the calisthenics was a great foundation to use to from a launch point from which to add additional load. For example, you being able to do pull-ups, I think that's going to be a better uh, anabolic, a better movement for building muscle than a lat pull down, for example. And now that you know how to do, uh, you can do plenty of unloaded pull-ups. Now you can do loaded pull-ups. So now we're adding additional load to an otherwise calisthenic movement. Or if you were doing, I don't know, a single leg squat, like a pistol squat, just a single leg unloaded squat. Now you can add load to that same movement, like a rear foot elevated split squat, right? Where you just stick your back foot up on a bench and now you have a bar on your back or you're holding dumbbells in your hands or whatever it might be. And now you're adding load to that movement. So what you did before really paved the way for you to do what you're doing now in a high integrity fashion. So I think that what you did then was very productive. And like you said, now you're more focused. I think that part of it might be that you're eating more food and you have more energy to train, so you feel more presence. And I think you're setting yourself up for muscle growth in a very productive way. So I think what you're doing is great.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's total refocus and sort of motivation and energy in general to do this. So whatever that process was, whether it was the food, whether it was just changing something.
Mm.
Speaking of changing, I don't know if you can answer this like easily, but some people talk about like rotating, do something for 2, 4, 6 weeks, like a certain routine, and then your body kind of gets adapted, and then changing maybe exercises or some some program. Is
Like
that,
muscle confusion sort of thing, like change it up
yeah,
kind of concept.
is that
Yeah.
BS kind of?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that people get kind of ADD with their movements. They try to look for excitement in life with the training things they're doing. So instead of just doing an overhead press, which is a really effective, productive thing to do, maybe now I don't know, you see people do it on a Bosu ball, right? This ball that's like flat on one side and a half ball underneath, and they'll try to like make it so that they're not stable while they're doing that press. So they'll do something to try to change it up. And by the way, as far as the Bosu ball specifically is concerned, there's great writings from a guy, Eric Cressy, who I have a lot of respect for, where he basically shreds those things. But I think that there are not that many different types of movements that we really can do. I think that, for example, pressing is a very basic thing to do. So to be able to press overhead is going to carry over into so many different things that you do. If I'm taking my 3-year-old and throwing her up in the air, that's a press. If I'm taking my luggage and putting it overhead, that's a press. If I do a handstand, that's all of this is vertical pressing. So I like the idea of keeping it really simple, really basic. If I was trying to sell you a fancy program, I would absolutely change things as often as possible and have you have no idea what the next step will be for me. I think that to have a very logical progression and to keep things very simple is not a great sales tool. So I like the idea of keeping things really basic. For the most part, sticking with compound movements. Compound movements meaning movements that require more than one joint. So my shoulder and my elbow are both involved in an overhead press. Again, I'm using overhead press as an example, or a bench press, or a push-up, or a squat. All of this uses multiple joints. So I like to build programs around multiple joints or compound movements. And I also like closed chain movements. So a closed chain movement you can think of as, I'm going to oversimplify this here, but you can think of it as, is your belly button moving? Whatever exercise you're doing, is your belly button moving in space? So for example, a pull-up, the bar is stationary, it's fixed, and you're pulling yourself up to it, your belly button has moved. Whereas a lat pull down, your belly button's going nowhere, you're just moving your limbs through space. Mm-hmm. And I think that for the most part, we want to move towards closed chain movements. And so a lot of this, you said, should you change it up? There are not that many different compound closed chain movements that are really available to us, and I would just stick with those basics. I love a deadlift. I love a squat. I love lunges of all different kinds, hinging movements like a Romanian deadlift or a kettlebell swing. These are really basic movements that I think are absolutely fantastic. So no, I don't think we need to change it up like that. I would pick what matters to me. So if I want to be really good at doing something in particular, I want to train in that direction. But I don't think that we need to, just change it up all the time for, I think there are going to be very few things that are going to build overall body strength, for example, like a snatch, an explosive movement. You're taking the bar off the floor, bringing it up overhead, very, very fast. You're building huge amounts of muscle across your whole body in a very practical way. And that translates to pretty much everything, any athletic pursuit you might have. I know that you said you're not looking for anything particular athletic end goal, but I still think those are the kinds of things that would build muscle beautifully. I think those are the kinds of things that will keep you explosive throughout your life so you can jump when you're 80 years old. So yeah, I guess I would just stick to the basics. I'm not a huge fan of like all the bells and whistles that people tend to throw on training programs.
Yeah. What about the program itself? Like, for example, and we can go into detail if I talked about what I'm doing right now is a push-pull, legs 3 days, and then I do that again, so 6 days, and then a day off, let's say. If somebody, like there's other things, I know I've heard about German volume training, where you would do, like if you did chest, well, first of all, it's 10 by 10, like, 10 sets of 10, but also potentially opposing, like you do your chest and you do your back in the same. Some people don't do that. Like if you watch videos, they'll still do the splits, but a lot of times they're doing an opposing muscle. So from a change perspective, like if you just stuck to the compounds and when you reached a certain, I'm assuming like when you do 3 or 4 sets, that each set would be more weight. Is that how you generally do it? Because I know there's reverse pyramid. What's that?
Well, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. You cut out for a minute. Can you say it again?
Okay. Um, like, would each set be, when we're talking about 3 or 4 sets, say for bench press, let's say, you typically do a warm up or whatever, and then you do increasing weight with decreasing reps, right?
Wait, can we actually, I'm sorry, can we actually back up 1 second? Just because you mentioned the German volume training.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to throw out what I was just typing in. I knew that I just read a study. It was just published literally last month. It was November 2017 in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research. So I wanted to find this because I just wanted to throw this out there because I know we're talking about volume. So this study is titled Effects of a Modified German Volume Training Program on Muscular Hypertrophy and Strength. And I just want to, really that quantity of volume for the majority of us is going to be, for you or for me, would not be something that I would recommend. You can read the results of the study and you'll see that it did so much damage that you could not recover in time to train again with that same intensity. And it's not like that additional damage did anything great. Sometimes you hear this axiom, stimulate, don't annihilate the muscle that you're trying to train or the movement or whatever it might be. So I think that 10 by 10 of a weight that would be heavy enough for you to struggle to make that happen, I think that for the vast majority of us, that's not something that I would recommend. I think that cutting that in half would be a lot for most people. So I just want to throw that out in terms of going really crazy on the volume. Or if you were going to dip into that, to not have that be the thing that you're always doing, you would overtrain pretty quickly on that. So without seeing the benefits from it. So I just wanted to throw that out on the German volume thing. But that said, you were asking about supersets or when to pair things or something of that nature.
Apparently, with some of the German volume training, they do opposing like back and chest in the same day versus splitting it. So what do you think about doing instead of separating the chest, like say chest, shoulders, and then back, biceps? What would you think about doing back and chest on the same workout?
Yeah, so my very first job out of college, I worked at Gold's Gym in Washington D.C. and that was one of the most fun jobs I've ever had. I absolutely loved that. That was really cool. And that was when I started really learning about bodybuilder splits. I was learning about Monday for the world is chest day, and Friday or whatever it might be is leg day. People will skip on that. But you break it down, right? So you have your body part. And that was just what I thought was the best way to do it because this is what bodybuilders are doing. And the older I get, it's now it's like over a decade since that first job. I've learned that the body doesn't really work in this sort of isolation fashion. That if I'm doing a deadlift, that is taxing my back as well as my legs. If I if I do a pull-up, I'm actually not just activating my back and my biceps and my posterior deltoids. I'm using my abdominals as well. I'm using the long head of my tricep. There's some interesting EMG research looking at that. So I like the idea of training the body as a whole. And so I wouldn't just have a chest day. Really, for, again, almost anybody, I wouldn't isolate in that fashion. I like the idea of pairing things. If we wanted to create a split, let's say a 4-day split, we might do an upper-lower or a push-pull, which is also kind of funny because push-pull, again, how do you throw, is a rear foot elevated split squat, the movement I mentioned before, is that a push or is that a pull? You use your hamstrings a whole lot. That's a pulling muscle, but it's also an extensor. So anyway, I like the idea of treating the body as an integrated piece of machinery. And so I've moved more towards less isolated training. So I think your push-pull legs is cool if you recover from that. So really what matters is across a given week, how much are you doing? How intense is that for you? How much volume are you accumulating? And are you able to recover from that? Because let's say before you were doing calisthenics, and I have no idea. Let's say you're doing it 3 days a week. Now, if we throw you 6 days a week of movement, is that going to be more than you're able to recover from? So the most important thing is, do you feel good? Like in a given week, are you getting more sluggish? Are you feeling more energetic? Are your lifts increasing? Are you periodizing in such a way that you are able to recover? That was one of my kids' building blocks, just took a spill. I got excited. I accidentally knocked over
You
Brendan's
get
mic.
excited, yeah.
So yeah, I feel like these splits are good, but for the most part, I would look towards really integrating the body. And so I'll tell you, for example, currently now I've trained in, I mean, so many different sorts of splits. Like I said, I started out with the body part isolation. I've done, like I said, push pull. I've done push pull legs. I've done full body work. Something that I've actually really enjoyed training is uh, well, actually, I'll get into some of the specifics a little bit later. But anyway, yeah, I think your push pull legs is fine, but I would look at it more in terms of how much volume are you accumulating across the week. And to be honest with you, I like to do, if that means you're training legs twice a week, which is totally cool. The question is, let me think how to say this. If you were going to do all push one day, all upper body, let's say you're just doing an hour of pressing basically, is that second half of that hour, is that last 30 minutes, is that going to be as quality? Are you going to be able to get as much done? Are you going to be able to lift as much weight as you would have if you were doing half of that being push and half of that being pull? So if at the end of a week, we added up all of the tonnage from your pressing, but we did it with a push day and a pull day, additively, cumulatively, I feel strongly that if you were to do pushing and pulling in the same day, you would be lifting overall more weight than if you isolated them into their own distance. Because, right, if you just benched, we talk about German volume, for example, if you've just done 8 sets of bench and now you have 2 sets left, I mean, the quality is not going to be really great. I think that if we were to have you fresh, this is why really elite athletes are oftentimes doing 2-a-days. They're more likely to be fresh that second time. Sometimes I'll be lifting, I'll get a call from work, and I'll have to come back to it. And I find that next set, that I had to take 2 hours off before I can get back to it again. That next set is almost as though I was fresh. So anyway, I guess that's what I would throw out is really that I would try to get more variety in there, and hopefully we'll move away from these body builder splits where really, if you think about that, I mean, a given muscle group, it's going to take like a day or two to recover. So if you have chest day on Monday and you don't work your chest again until next Monday, you might be stimulating growth Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, but then you have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to atrophy. So I would rather stimulate the muscle more frequently, like a higher training frequency. I just think that the quality of work you'll be able to put in is going to be better.
Yeah, like I'm doing two times a week with the push pull legs and then push pull legs, so it's like 4 days or whatever in between. But I noticed that, and I'm feeling great generally, and increasing the weight. But what I noticed today was, yesterday I really beat myself up with the push, the shoulders and the chest. It was probably my 3rd time doing this type of routine, 3rd or 4th, and it felt really good. I was fatigued and tired and everything. I woke up this morning and I felt pretty wiped when I woke up. And when I thought, oh shit, I waited a while until I had to eat and stuff like that. And then I went and I did pull-ups, and it wasn't that great. Like the pull-ups, the energy level was down, and that kind of goes with what you're saying. If I would have done it, reduced some of the push volume, done it that same day, then the next day I could have done legs. It would have been generally a separate area, that I wouldn't have.
And also, I would look at this as a whole in terms of how much energy you have. Let me actually back up and clarify something that I think is really important. By the way, I think what you said is really true. Like, if you lift really hard on one day, the next day you're going to be wiped. So if we isolate, even if we look at our energy, forget about our peripheral nervous system. Forget about how much strength my bicep might have in it, the nerves firing there, how strong they are. Think about it as a central nervous system concept as well. If I've just taxed my adrenals, totally destroyed myself today doing pressing, even if it's a different muscle group that I'm training tomorrow, it's not like a different nervous system is now being used to train those muscles. So actually, that actually segues perfectly into what I was going to tell you. I've really enjoyed this type of training that's been used to train sprinters, because there's really not a whole lot of value to having a sprinter train at like half speed. Really, I shouldn't say half speed. You don't want to sprint. You don't want to practice sprinting at 90%. You're either sprinting hard or you're not. And there's a training concept or a design called high-low, which I really enjoy, where you're basically either pushing hard or you're doing whatever it takes to recover from that. You're not trying to grow. You're not trying to get better. All you're trying to do is basically actively recover until you can then push again very hard again. And so I like that because it's kind of an on-off switch as opposed to having a whole lot of medium range work. And again, it's not for everybody, but the reason why I'm mentioning it is that, if you have a really intense session today, tomorrow you can expect that you'd want to back off or train a very different type of system. So this is where there's a type of training design called undulating periodization. Have you heard of this?
No.
Undulating periodization basically trains different systems on different days. So if today I'm working on speed, so I'm moving very, very lightweight, very quickly, very explosively, then tomorrow I can allow for today's training to basically recover as I'm doing something different. So maybe tomorrow I'm working on hypertrophy. Maybe a different day I'm working on power. So let's say if you do your push-pull legs, that means that each week you're having 2 cycles. So each body part essentially is getting trained twice. And one thing that you might do if you were implementing undulating periodization is basically just work on different goals for each of those times. And if your goal is to get big, you can accomplish big by moving weight explosively, moderate weight explosively, like power. And you can also get big by working on hypertrophy or by working on strength. So you basically just take a different goal and you implement it. That way you have a different system that you're taxing in a given week. And it's not that everyone needs to do that, but it is absolutely effective, unquestionably effective in higher level training. Beginners don't really need to worry about doing it in that fashion. You're not a beginner anymore. But I think as you move more towards your potential, as you close in on what your body's capable of accomplishing, I think that's an effective way to go about it. I want to throw one other thing out real quick. Is you said you felt really good and fatigued at the end of yesterday. I wouldn't use fatigue as a measure of whether this lift was effective or not. This is one of probably the biggest mistake that I made when I first started lifting, is I thought if I take if I train a muscle to failure, or if I feel really exhausted to the point that I can't even walk out of the gym at the end of that session, that was a good thing. Damn, I wish I could go back in time and undo that, because I think what is much more important is that you just made progress. And you're not even going to make progress on all or even the majority of your sessions. Just making a little bit of progress so that you can recover enough so that you can go back and make progress again the next time. That's the more important. I used to think if I could put 10 pounds on my bench press, every week when I lift, that'd be the best thing I could ever do. I would rather have actually put on less weight on my bench press and just had those gains, accumulate over a longer period of time so that I could maintain my form and my technique and all this. I just want to throw that out there because I know you said you felt really good because you felt fatigued, but I wouldn't use fatigue as my marker of effective training. Instead, I would look at objective progress, like did I move more weight? Did I, was it more reps? Was it more whatever it is,
Yeah, I'm tracking my, because I'm doing new things with dumbbells. I've done this before, but in the last few years I haven't done much free weight stuff, and so I track, how much did I do on the bench, and it's a rapid increase because I'm getting into it again, and it's new and stuff like that. But so what did I want to say about that?
Wait, on that note, can I just throw out real quick? Can I just throw out a little shout out because I'm wearing my little shirt? You're saying you're tracking your progress. This company does not pay me, by the way. I just advise them for free. I like them. Gravitas is an app that, in my opinion, is the best lifting tracking app that I've come across, and that's one of the reasons why I like them.
I'll check that out. Yeah, no, I'll check that out because I'm just entering it into a Google spreadsheet right now. So if I were to do, I guess the question is, around what you were just saying is, we'll use me as an example, because I've been seriously considering more of a full body 3 times a week and but you also mentioned upper lower. So let's just say, if you can answer this, could I do 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, full body, and then, so you're doing more frequency, and so the volume would be sort of split over the week, or like you mentioned, upper lower, and the only issue with upper lower would be if the next day you're still pretty wiped from the upper, it may not, it's not the same muscle, but there's still some tiredness from doing a full upper body kind of workout.
Sure. So I would not expect to set new world records for yourself on consecutive days of upper and lower, but that's not to say that you couldn't still train that next muscle group. Another type of training worth looking at, which actually plays in, and by the way, I like both of those. I like 3 day a week full body split. I like 4 day a week upper lower. And And tying that in with this undulating periodization that I mentioned, there's a type of training that you might want to look into. It's called West Side Barbell, and it's super famous. They churn out some of the best powerlifters, competitive powerlifters of any program, really. And so if you were to do upper, lower, let's say you did Monday upper, Tuesday lower, and let's say Thursday you did upper, Friday lower again. What they're doing, they have one day where they're working on like the strength, maximal strength, and another day is a dynamic effort. So one day you're moving really heavy weight and you're working up to whatever it might be, a really heavy, whatever, three rep max or something like that. Let's say for bench press on your Monday. Then on Tuesday, you're not lifting the heaviest weight you possibly can. You are more working on speed. So that's where the dynamic effort comes in. And then Thursday, Friday, you might switch so that each week you're getting one heavy lift, one fast lift for each, upper and lower sort of split. And I'm a huge fan of that. I've done that before myself. And if you Google West Side Barbell, you'll see some training programs for it. So anyway, I thought I'd throw that out there too. So that's a totally viable way of going about it. And if you were to do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday again, you could work at it in this way. You could even just work on different rep ranges. If you wanted to do Mondays geared more, I don't know, I'm going to oversimplify this, but let's just say Monday, you stick everything is 6 to 8 reps. And let's say Wednesday, everything is 9 to 11, and Friday is 12 to 15 or something like that. That's another way of making a sort of, this is oversimplified, and I like the idea more of, when I program, I like to look more big picture than breaking it down in a simple way. But I do think that it is helpful to create that variety across your week or across your month or whatever it might be, so that you can not feel like you're, if you train hard today, it sucks to feel like tomorrow you don't feel as effective or productive. It's nice to have a different goal on that day so you can push hard in a different way.
Yeah. So you would do like phone consultations to go through all the periodization and come up with custom programs for people?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely do. And I'll tell you also, I think that there are really simple ways, really simple, easy programs. One of my favorite programs, this is just because it's so easy and really effective, is not not an undulating periodization, but it's called a linear periodization, where basically week 1 is easy, week 2 is medium, week 3 is hard, and then you deload and it goes a little, this program is called 5-3-1, 5/3/1. And the author is Jim Wendler. And there are spreadsheets you can download for free. There's one that I got from a guy called Poteto, Poteto. And it's just so beautifully simple. Honestly, I don't even think you need to, I don't think people really need to retain my services for this sort of thing, unless they're struggling in big ways, or they have some particularly complex issue, or they're elite, or whatever it might be, something where they need more specific advice. This program, this 5-3-1 program, just steps you up and then deloads and then steps you up. And this is enough to take someone from a beginner to intermediate, maybe even towards the beginning of advanced. At some point, they'd have to switch to like I said, to more of an undulating protocol. But that's a beautiful, beautiful way of lifting, and you could tailor that to what you're doing. So, to a 4-day split. Basically, on Monday, you might be focusing on, to avoid the people who are bench pressing on Monday. Maybe Monday you're squatting, and then maybe Tuesday, that's our lower body. We're working on lower body that day. Maybe Tuesday, you're working on your bench press, and then Thursday you come back in and you're deadlifting, and then Friday you're working more on your overhead press. So you're basically upper, you can do lower, upper, or whatever it might be, and then you have assistance work as well. So your core lift, that's the thing that you care the most about, that's your bread and butter, and that would be one of these big compound movements. And then your assistance work would be like half of what German volume training might be, as far as the 10x10. Here, I believe, it was a while since I looked at Wendler's program, but I think he's doing basically one core lift, 3 heavy sets, so you work up to it. So like 3 warm-up sets, and then 3 heavy sets of any of these compound lifts, whatever it is that's important to you. And then you finish, once you're done with that, you just pair 2 movements. You superset 2 movements. Let's say a push and a pull. So if it's an upper body day, and let's say you just bench press, now maybe you do dumbbell bench press, and you're pairing it with bent over rows or whatever it might be. And you're just pairing those 2 different exercises, let's say 5 sets of 10. I think that's what he says. but it's not magic. He doesn't really, that's not his bread and butter. He's just saying do some assistance work to support the rest of your lifts. But anyway, 5 through 1, I think for you would be really, really effective. It's a very easy, gradual way for you to make progress and also deload, like once every, I think, 4 weeks for a 4-day split, for a 4-day lift. So I think that would be a great thing for you or for anyone who's just trying to get into this to do.
Yeah, it's great stuff. One of the reasons, like I liked, like when I said about the fatigue and the a bunch of things, soreness, pumps, whatever you want, a variety of sort of things, is that it may not be the thing to look at or focus on as far as like you said, but in my case, I tried to look at my workouts objectively, and there might be issues with the caloric intake, like we talked about, but I felt like one of the things that I like about getting back into this in a serious way is that, and I'm hard on myself, like when I say that, you know, like I've been working out fairly regularly. It's not like I take weeks off or, you know, but there wasn't a lot of progress lately, and but one of the things I like about this is that it really develops you mentally. Like, okay, step 1 was kind of trying to be honest about the way I was doing things. Let's say I wasn't doing enough volume. Let's say I was taking 2 big breaks in between every set. You know, like you do wait. Oh, I gotta wait 2 weeks or 2 minutes. I'm really bored. I'll go back and, like, if I'm outside, I'll go back inside, or if you go on Facebook or whatever. And so being honest about some of the problems and maybe not doing enough sets of, you know, you do 2 sets and you're like, okay, and you do something else, and so that was part of it. And then with the bodybuilding and that, it's like you said about the explosive and the athletic stuff, there's a lot of mental, like, limitations that you set on yourself. Like, I'm not an athlete, I don't want to do, or I'm not good at explosive, or I'm not. And I think that, like, those types of power moves I've never been focused on in general. And so, like, I've sort of had to look at what I was going to do and say, like, you gotta push through those resistances to just put in the volume and do the longer routines or whatever it happens to be, because one of my issues is boredom. Like, I'm always on the computer learning and studying, so when I'm doing like the same thing, like bench press 5 sets, warm-ups, pushing, you know, it's like, I mean, I've been enjoying it the last couple of weeks because it's a new process, but so all this stuff is also a mental aspect as far as.
Well, can I share something? Can I speak to that? I just want to say, I think this actually can be fun. I don't think it has to be the kind of thing where I have to discipline myself to just get in and do the boring stuff. I think it really can be fun. It's one of the things that I like about, for example, explosive work. First of all, we can get it just as big, by the way, moving moderate weight explosively as we can heavyweight slower. You're recruiting the same amount of muscle. But it's actually more fun for me. Like, I find that I wake up. If I'm doing, I don't know, if box jumps, for example, are a part of, you know, if I'm using that to start firing on all cylinders, I find that I wake up much more than just a really light, you know, alternate way of getting my body going. And I think that it really can be fun. I think another way to do this, you know, we're talking about tracking everything, and there's a totally different way of going about this. I mean, here we are, we're like, you know, scientists looking at how can we quantify this. And then I look at dancers who are really strong and really athletic, and a lot of people would trade bodies. You see, you know, male, I don't know, like, I mean, I've been to like ballets, and I've seen male, I don't know what you call them, are they still ballerinas if they're male? I don't know, but like they're lifting, or figure skaters. These people are jacked, lifting people all the way up over their head with like one arm, and they're more intuitive with the way that they feel. And I think another thing to do is, you know, yes, you're writing it down, you're seeing what you can do, but another thing could be when you no longer feel explosive, when you're starting to feel like it's not fun to be lifting, to just walk the hell out of there. You know, like when you don't feel like you have that energy and you can give it your all, my guess is that if you did that, you might cut your training session short, but that you'd feel that energy to come back again, maybe later that day or the next day, and then give it your all again, and it would actually be fun. So if you're an elite athlete, maybe you don't have the room to tinker with your program in this way, or maybe if you're an elite athlete, this is the best time to tinker with your program in this way. But I can tell you, having lifted since I was like 14 years old, it's like I'm 34 now, so it's 20 years. After a while, I just want it to be fun. Like if I'm going to make this my life, I want it to be enjoyable, and I find that moving things fast feels really fun. I wake up when I do it. A muscle up is more fun for me than a heavy loaded pull up. So anyway, I want to just share that with you too. It doesn't have to be that you're in the grind and you have to just beat this into yourself. You can absolutely, kind of like with food, right? Counting macros and things. Yeah, again, if you're an elite athlete, you need to do that. But after a while, like, is that the kind of thing we can sustain for the next 70 years or 60 years or whatever it might be? It's got to be fun, so you got to enjoy it. So you have an idea of what you're going into. But I recommend to you that you don't feel like you need to hit these numbers, and if you don't, it's like a really stressful experience that you can actually have fun doing it.
Yeah. I had some fun with the calisthenics, but like when you're trying to achieve a certain move, like even a muscle up, which I couldn't, I didn't work on it, but a few times it's like, you want that instant ability. And, and even though I could do pull-ups, I wasn't able to. And then you just start looking up like progression to get to a muscle up. And so that's where I hurt myself. Like when I was trying to do planche at one point, I sort of pushed it too far, and I've still got a problem with in my bicep or my pec minor or something, because I was like really pushing myself beyond what I was capable of. And then I signed up for this gymnastic bodies with Chef Summer, and it was like a very back to basics, like get your joints, get all this stuff, and then slowly over time. But this goal is so far away to actually do something. And like I couldn't do a handstand, like freestanding. I could do against the door, and I was also had a curve, and I was trying to get it straighter. And then I realized my shoulders were really tight because I couldn't get that, my shoulders, because we're on the computer all the time. So a lot of the moves that you're kind of motivated by that are fun, you can't do them, and so there's this process to get to that point. And but in general, calisthenics was fun, and that's kind of why I was thinking that I would focus on that. But I'm having,
and that can go hand in hand with what your current goals are, by the way, too. Like, there's no reason why you couldn't work towards like being able to, you're doing an explosive pull-up. There's no reason why a heavy loaded pull-up wouldn't complement that effort. Because strength and power, they're related. And so I think you could probably do that and this. And you were asking me before, do you have to change up the actual movement that you do often? I would say no, but you could certainly change up the way that you do a certain movement often, right? So multiple reps of pull-ups might be fun and exciting to see, hey, can I get to do 20 pull-ups or whatever? But after a while, I think it's a very natural thing to be like, okay, been there, done that, I want to work on something else. And so now you work on a loaded pull-up, or you work on an explosive one or something like that, or maybe use bands or whatever it might be. So I think to do the same movement in these different ways, these different fashions, can be really fun. And I think for you, it might get you everything that you're looking for, because like you said, you get bored doing something for a really long period of time. Well, that's the nice thing here of having different goals on different days, is you're good at the movement, but now it's just a different approach to it that can kind of keep the head in the game.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll definitely consider that. I'm still going to be doing pull-ups and dips, and pull-ups and dips, as well as the free weight stuff. Let's see, that's really good stuff. So just some little things, I guess, that might not be able to be answered in a simple format, but if somebody was doing...
I'm getting super excited and talking like crazy anyway, so you're...
knocking stuff off the table.
So you're saying?
If somebody was doing... if somebody hit a plateau, like say they're trying to do a certain weight on the bench, and after 3 sets, they hit a peak, and they're sort of, for a few weeks or something, they're not getting making any progress. I saw somebody say that you could add some volume until you can, like, and then decrease it once you can do the heavier weight. So I guess I'm saying is, if somebody is stuck at a certain weight, and you mentioned all sorts of other variations, people could do explosive and different things. Maybe they've been doing it for a long time and they're burnt out, like too many heavy days and stuff like that. But Do you have certain strategies, or is there some?
Busting through plateaus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the cause of a plateau is really what, it'd be kind of like saying, I'm fighting with my wife. Do you have any suggestions on how I can stop fighting with my wife? I think it really comes down to, why am I fighting with my wife? Like, what are we stressed about work? Are we not communicating really well about our kids? Are we, like, what could be the cause of that? So there could be 1,000 different causes. And I would just want to address that specific cause. So, for example, one of the reasons I think why people plateau so quickly when they're lifting is actually what we were talking about before, is about thinking that more is better, and that if I push really hard now, I'm gonna get there sooner. And so, very, very often, I see the cause of a plateau being doing too much without recovering. So, just inadequate recovery. I rarely see a plateau coming from not doing enough. Like, people figure it out pretty quickly. If they're lifting once every 2 weeks and they're plateauing, they figure it out pretty quickly. Like, I probably should lift more than that, but they don't usually realize it in the other direction. So, there's lots of fancy ways of tracking central nervous system function. I've used heart rate variability in the past. You can do something as simple as a finger tap test. You can download a free app. I think the one that I haven't used it in years now. It's called Performance. It's like a blue app, and you can literally tap your finger on your screen for 10 seconds. Do it on each hand or not, and then track how are you firing all cylinders? Are you not? That finger tap test will correlate very, very well with your training readiness. And so you can see, if you're just grinding yourself into the ground day after day from pushing too hard, you definitely need to back off. And that's one of the things I like about this high-low training, by the way, as an example, is that you don't train hard again until you're naturally ready to do it. So there's like a natural kind of a negative feedback loop. And there's biofeedback to this too. There's a training program or protocol called myo-reps. And it uses this natural self-limiting factor of, when you can do more, you do it. When you can do less, you respect that. I think a lot of people, when they're weak, they get in there and they bench, and let's say that they miss their number of reps they were trying to do. So they say, okay, fine, I'm going to get another set in there so I can make up for those missed reps from that last set. And that's like the worst thing that I could possibly see. It's basically telling your body, saying, hey, look, I couldn't do what you were asking of me. So you say, okay, but I'm going to make you do that on that next set. No, respect what your body's telling you. That's when you get injuries, when you don't do that. So I would say the most frequent thing is you're doing too much. So back off, America. We need to slow it down. Another thing, another common thing that I see is that people are not eating the way that they need to eat to recover. They're not. Actually, this is going to sound nuts, because we're used to thinking about protein as, actually, I'm talking on Potato Strong. I think people will get it. But I see people pounding protein shakes and taking, like, chicken to the face on a meal by meal basis, like trying to think that if I eat enough protein, or even on a plant-based diet, you'll see people trying to like inhale soy protein powder, and I have to ask people to just back off that and to say, hey, you're doing that, you're crowding out the food. That quantity of protein is not actually going to facilitate recovery. You need to allow for your body to actually have the appetite to have, to eat the food, the quantity of foods that you'd actually need to be able to recover. And so protein, mega dosing protein, is very satiating. It's and it's very thermogenic, and so you don't have the energy, the hunger to eat enough other stuff. So I would say that's another thing too, is back off the protein, not like enormously, and I'm not saying this to everybody, but some people are overdoing it, and by backing that off of that, they can allow for an actual caloric intake that can support growth and facilitate recovery. So that's another big thing. I could probably go off of 10 other things as far as what could be the reason for a plateau, but those are just a few.
Yeah, since we're almost finished here, I was gonna just ask you quickly about nutrition. So you sort of mentioned, you said in one of our last talks, roughly 1.3 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight as a low end. If you're
that's 0.3 for who?
As you got 1.3 to 1.8, so the low end is when after you've been doing it for a while, you don't need as much because you're not going to build as much muscle.
Gotcha.
Do you have an updated amount that you would?
Well, I just 1.3. Just I don't know. Like I'm used to seeing for endurance athletes, somewhere like 1.2 to 1.4. For strength athletes, where you would fall in there as a bodybuilder, someone looking to put on size, you look at more like 1.6 to 1.8 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. When you're cutting weight, it's a bit different. Might be, might even get higher than that. It could get up to, let's say 2 grams of protein per kilogram body, but it could even be higher than that. It just depends on how aggressive the cut is and the other factors that play into it. How hard are you training? All these numbers are kind of crazy to me because maybe you count it once on chronometer, so that you have an idea of what you generally want to be getting in. But just like you said, also in the beginning, you're turning over far more muscle protein. So, that's where protein intakes would be higher if you wanted to max out gains from the very beginning. But if you were cool with taking a bit of a slower approach, which is what I'm advocating for anyone who's not a competitive athlete, then, you just eat your food and you're good. Don't worry about it. You're going to get to the same place as you would have if you were sprinting to the finish. The only time when it actually makes a difference is if you're competing against other people who are doing everything in this moment that they can. 20 years out, it's really going to be mostly a wash between someone who's sprinting now or taking it slow.
So for someone because I have Potato Strong and I generally have been advocating Dr. McDougall Starch diet, would you say that, so some of the things I'm going to ask you about would be potentially higher protein, because potatoes and rice don't necessarily have as much as beans and legumes, like that type of thing. And also nuts and seeds, for other types of nutrients, fats, because a lot of people don't even touch nut butters or nuts and seeds pretty much. Even flaxseed, some people won't even go near because it's a very low fat. So with an athletic and recovery situation, what are your thoughts on that as far as any modifications to the typical?
To a McDougall approach? Yeah. Basically, does a McDougall approach, does that cater well to athletes? Or should that be modified? Is that kind of what?
Yes.
Well, I would break the athlete down. I would see, are we talking endurance athlete or are we talking about a strength athlete? I definitely I feel 100% confident that a whole food plant-based diet can be entirely optimal for any athlete. I don't care if they're an offensive lineman or a punter. I don't care if they play soccer. I don't play if they're, it just doesn't matter. A whole food plant-based diet, in my opinion, is absolutely optimal for a bunch of reasons. But I would say that if your goal was maximally building muscle in the very beginning, the earlier phases of lifting, McDougall's approach is honestly, I feel badly saying this, is not geared towards that. It's not going to give you the quantity of protein that the literature makes very clear is required to maximally stimulate muscle growth in the earlier phases of lifting. Mm-hmm. So the way that I would modify that, rather than making the majority of my starch come from potatoes or rice, I would be looking to get a higher quantity of my starch coming in the form of legumes. So I would be having like a lentil chili. Like lentil soup or a bowl of chili. Actually, I wanted to share this with you. What was the name of the study? There's a study, I think it's published in 2015. It's called the Skeletal Muscle Anabolic Response to Plant versus Animal-Based Protein Consumption. The senior author on this is Luc Van Loon. If anyone's into protein research, and I've been into this ever since I was a teenager, this guy is like a heavy hitter in the field. And you can download this article for free. And if you scroll all the way down to table 4, it basically tells you the quantities of different plant foods you would need in a given meal to hit this what's called a leucine threshold. This is the amount of amino acid. Leucine is the most anabolic or muscle growth oriented amino acid. This is the amount of the food that you need to eat to maximally stimulate muscle protein synthesis. And lentils, for example, is not that much. It's 150 grams of lentils that you need to ingest in a given meal to max out muscle protein synthesis. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because if we compare that to a potato, so 150 grams of lentils, if you were to do that just through potatoes, which no one does, just eat lentils in a meal or just potatoes in a meal, you would need 2,891 grams of potatoes. No one's going to eat that quantity of potatoes in a meal to max out muscle protein synthesis. Mm-hmm. If you had black beans, 167 grams. So you can see beans, like I said, lentils 150, black beans 167. If you were to do it through rice, 500. damn, that's a lot of rice. So, so this is why I would gear more towards those legumes. Now, I'll also tell you, like I said, I don't think that this is necessary at all phases of training, but legumes are so healthy anyway. I mean, they're so healthy. They're packed with antioxidants. It's just ridiculous. There's one study showing that they're the most powerful predictor of longevity in older adults of different ethnicities. So, I mean, they're just beautiful foods to eat. They're so satiating. The only reason I wouldn't max them out like crazy is if they were so filling that I couldn't eat the additional foods that I'd need to put on size. So if I was trying to lean bulk or lean gain or whatever it might be, maybe I would have more legumes. But if I was struggling, if I was a hard gainer, having a hard time putting on muscle, either I'd have less of that, or maybe I would replace some of those legumes with other higher, like hemp seeds, for example, those sorts of fats that have higher protein content. Mediterranean pine nuts have a huge amount of protein as well. So I know that these are higher fat foods. I would use those for people who are having a hard time gaining weight. So if you're having a hard time putting on muscle, that's the time when the fat comes in. McDougall's approach, he's not catering to bodybuilders, he's not catering to athletes, he's catering to the majority of Americans who are suffering from diseases of excess. They're not trying to put on anything, they're trying to take things off. So that's when I would say it's really important to see what he was attempting to do with this approach and apply it for those people, and he does it beautifully. What we want to do is see, okay, if there's a different demographic who actually does need to put on size and they're having a hard time doing that, then do we really need to look at whole plant fat as problematic? And I would say no. I mean, to say, hey, a tablespoon of ground flaxseed, which has over 100% of my daily requirement of ALA, essential fatty acids, to shun that because it has the word fat in it, I think to demonize a macronutrient is unproductive. So yeah, I would say there is room for whole plant fat in a diet, especially when people are having a hard time putting on size. And guacamole is delicious. So come on.
Yes, because I had the potato strong and I was sort of advocating Dr. McDougall in general as a diet. I started posting like workout mostly on Facebook, but like videos and sort of stuff that's related to building muscle and weight training, because it has benefits to women, like for osteoporosis and weight bearing exercise and all that, and keeping your burning fat, maintaining muscle as you age. So I'm trying to promote that as well. But I'm at the point now, like as soon as I started doing this, I've been ravenous, eating more food. I even had like raw pumpkin seeds, peanut butter, and it's like, and I get these like metabolic, like my temperature at certain times, all of a sudden I'm like burning up, like, and so
that's thermogenesis. That's thermogenesis in action. And basically, you're increasing your energy intake, and so your body's trying to burn that off. If you were to eat less, your thermogenesis, you basically your temperature would drop. So your body's just trying to help maintain homeostasis. So it's kind of cool to see that you're experiencing that firsthand.
Yeah, and I felt like muscular. Like I really feel. I might have had some muscle in the past where it's been. I don't know how long the muscle memory lasts, but I never was huge or anything. But it's been an amazing, like ever since I switched to the free weight. So I'm really excited because you need to see. It helps to have results, like even small ones, to for motivation. But so what I'm saying is, like, I get a little bit of pushback from people that were like, they were interested in recipes and they may be older and so I'm sort of changing a few things that go a little bit different from McDougall, but this is where
that's all approach. Like, I feel like to not adapt is just, I feel like it's unfortunate. It's missing out on the nuances of life and the beauty, and to just it's nice and comforting. It feels religious to have like this is the plan that works for everyone always. But then when we see different people have different goals, and some people have muscle wasting disease, and are those people who we should be putting on a weight loss plan is because the majority of the country is, needs to cut back. It just feels unfortunate. I'm sorry, and I hope that those people come around, because one size fits all for anything in life just doesn't seem right.
And it's also a social, like it's more than just that diet, and that's like, like you said, there's this tribalism, and it's not just in diets, but you get sort of pigeonholed, and then if you say anything against those beliefs within that, and like I've been the biggest Dr. McDougall fan, and I do, like I said, majority is what I'm doing, but I like to evolve and learn new things, and it's a few, like protein in like you said, there's different goals, and majority of people are trying to get healthy and lose some weight. And but for people that are building muscle, and like I went from a low of like I'm about 6 feet. When at one point I hit about 172, I think it was 171, 172, and then I've been doing the body like the calisthenics and really watching my calories. And I got to like right now I'm 178, 180,
Right.
and going the opposite direction. I'm in 30-inch waist jeans, and the funny thing, because that's what I'm like going by. I don't want to just do a big bulk of fat. You know, that's not what I'm into. Like a dirty bulk or whatever they call them. But the fact that I can still fit in those at 48, and I've hit like the other day was 180 in the morning, 180.4, something like that. And it's
Well,
like, it's kind of funny because I'm going in the opposite direction now. I want to like get heavier. So the goals do change over time, and like I said, there's also the mental thing, like pushing through some of these barriers about athleticism. Like I'm just a sedentary guy, and I'm not an athlete or whatever, and sort of those mental blocks you put on yourself.
yeah.
So it's I'm excited for the future in this area.
Yeah, yeah, and I would be too. I think what you're doing is amazing. You're putting on muscle. That's beautiful. That's such an amazing. And also, it's so ridiculous that the stereotype is that someone who follows a plant-based diet is skinny, and I commend you enormously for helping to blow that up. It's just such a ridiculous myth. So I think it's wonderful that you're doing that, and I also think that it's nice to go with how you feel when you're inspired to bulk. You bulk. If you're inspired to cut, you cut. Like I remember going to the very first bodybuilding show I ever went to and seeing these guys up on stage, and they were like so huge. And at that point, I thought that like they did it naturally. I thought that they did it without steroids, and I thought like, man, I just want to do that. So I had been cutting for like spring break, and I thought, nah, I just want to put on size, and I just did that, and it was so exciting for me. And I think that anything that lights you up, so that you really want to get in there and train, anything that you're really motivated to do, like right now, my personal goal, the thing that makes me really excited, I told you I moved to Bend, Oregon, and I'm right near ski slopes, is I think about teaching not just my kids, but I want to teach my grandkids how to snowboard. I want to teach them how to do inverted aerials. I want that. That's my goal. And so when I think about doing, if I'm doing cleans, it's an exercise in the gym, right? Explosive movement off the floor, catching it in a front rack position. I think about like doing this movement over and over is the kind of thing that's going to help me stay explosive when I'm teaching my grandkids, maybe my great grandkids, how to do that. And so, how to snowboard. And so I think whatever it is that lights you up, if right now you're excited to be bulking, hell yeah, like do that. Absolutely do that. And if at some point you're like, no, I really want my abs to come, it's not like you've jumped ship and now somehow you're no longer true to your original cause. Like, I think we're dynamic beings and we're meant to be that way. So to embrace that, it sounds like you're doing that. And hopefully there's no guilt or any kind of negative feeling surrounding a change in your direction. That's a very natural and healthy thing, I think, to experience.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's partly like when I called it Potato Strong was to, and not for myself particularly, but just to show that, not just men can eat vegetables and starches but also like it was kind of the play on Rip Esselstyn's Plant Strong. It's showing that, and a lot of people that were in sort of vegan diets were the fruitarian cyclists. And that's a different body type. They want to be lean and small so they can ride long. They don't want to have big, huge upper body, let's say.
Yeah.
And so a large number were raw and fruitarians. And so, yeah, that's partly the goal. It's good, like you said, with the kids and that to have a purpose when you're working out, like other than just, how it looks or that type of thing.
Which is cool too. Honestly, I got into it. I think vanity is a strong motivator. So whatever it is that gets the foot in the door, and then, who's to say where it'll go from there? Sometimes your goal becomes something that you would have never thought, like to be able to dunk, or just to be healthy or to do it for the planet or whatever it might be that you're eating the way you're eating and training the way you're training to help to lead by example so that your coworkers are inspired to train too. There's so many good reasons to do it. And so whatever it is that gets the foot in the door, I'm all about.
Yeah, it sounds great. Well, thanks so much, David. I'll just, you can stay on the line. I'll just stop this now. But for everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and post your comments below and we'll try to get back to you and answer some of your questions. Thanks, guys. See you later.